everyone, welcome to Homeschool Autism Life. My name is Jamie. Today's video, I wanted to talk about taking family pictures, specifically if you have a special needs child or specifically autism, because that's where I live. And I don't want to speak to anyone else's story, but I had a few tips and tricks that I wanted to share that may make the process easier. Now, right off the bat, I need to say that we do not do this every year. In fact, the last time we did it was 7-ish years ago. We just took some this year, a couple of weeks ago, but it's one of those things that I feel I've done enough times that I can give a couple of ideas, a couple of tricks, and anyone who has any ideas, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below, because it is definitely a thing that we felt that we needed. So why do we do them so rarely? Well, part of it is because of Darian, but part of it is because my husband is not a huge fan. And the only reason why we did it this year was because my husband was looking at our family pictures from way back when. Like, this little boy is 16 now, this little girl is 13, and this one is nearly 15. So when we did that picture last time, he looked at the pictures and was like, maybe we need to do that again. And I was like, okay, you heard you, right? Like, you're not allowed to give me trouble about this now. And so we did manage to take it, but I've learned a few things along the way. So the first thing that I would say is really important is to have the conversation with your photographer, letting them know that you have a child with special needs, letting them know that it is okay for you or for them to ask, is it okay, say, if your child is pulling on his shirt, or is it okay if he's got his fingers in his mouth and he's chewing his nails? Is it okay? Are you happy? Just letting them know these are the things that I prefer not to be in the picture. So for me, one of the pictures that we took, and maybe I'll tell you this at the end, but we did one session with this photographer and I said no to most of the pictures because I was so focused on getting my little girls in this picture to pay attention, to smile when they were supposed to, because they were kind of like all over the place in the first on the first session that we did, and it was so bad. Yeah, and it was just crazy. It was just craziness. And Darian was so well behaved, and I was like, this is awesome. But every single picture he was so good was because he was so focused on doing this to his nail that he literally, this was the picture he had. And I'm like, no. And this photographer felt that she didn't want to say, like, she didn't want to point out something that maybe would look like she was discriminating against him or would highlight, like, it was just, I was like, no, please. And I forgot to mention that to her. And it ended up with us needing to do a second set of photographs, and in a different location, which I'll tell you about later. But there was one picture that came out that I was like, I loved. And this is the second tip. Tell them that you don't necessarily need photos. You would like one with everyone looking, but also you are okay with pictures that are more natural. Like in this instance, we're walking on the train tracks. He is momentarily got his hand out of his mouth and he is balancing on the train tracks, which I will tell you about later. Don't do train tracks, by the way. But we were balancing and he was like, I was like, oh no, don't fall. And these are some of the best pictures because they're not scripted and they're not like stand in a line and smile. So make sure that those are something that you like off the cuff, family walking pictures, walking uphill. Like then there's no stress about looking. Some of the pictures that I just had recently taken taken that I'm not going to show you because they're family presents for Christmas. But one of them was walking down the hill towards a river. One of them was walking up. Me and my husband are just walking up towards our vehicle, and she snapped a perfect picture of my husband and I. So those pictures are always generally much better. So if you can find a photographer, quiet on set, Darian. If you can find a photographer who likes doing those off-the-cuff photographs, that is much better. So another thing that we did that I would recommend is if you do have an autistic child that doesn't look at the camera and doesn't smile naturally, because my son likes to do this cheese, sometimes it's easier, and this is what we did with this picture, is you can't tell it, but a good photographer can take a picture like this and sandwich it with a picture like that. And that's what this lady did. And I was behind the camera in this one making this little boy laugh. And I was doing crazy, silly, redonkulous things. I think at one point I was darting in to tickle him and then would dart out quickly. Those are things, and this is another one of those pictures that and if you look really carefully, it looks like she's taken this photo of Darian and a different one of Dad and put them together. And so finding a photographer who's willing to do that, again, is really helpful as well. This one was another one that was a little bit more off the cuff and silly. Mommy's trying to get Darian to smile. And then I don't know what my girls were doing, but I definitely thought this is real life. This is a real life, and it shows you what real life is. I think she was trying to show her fancy shoes that she got from our thrift store. And this one, I don't know, but the look on her face, I don't know if you can see it very well, but she's just like, and I'm like, that's real life. Yep. But he doesn't have like the threshold for being willing to take pictures is very little for Darian, especially back then. And so then we ended up doing some pictures, just me and the girls. And I'm sorry if they're not focusing very well, but me and my girls at golden hour in a park, and then one of me and my husband. So there are different things that you can do, but it's definitely one of the big ones that I would suggest is making sure that you have a photographer who is ultimately flexible. If you say, I can get him to smile, I will do all the silly, goofy things. If you can splice together pictures and have somebody who's like, oh yeah, no worries, I can actually do that, that's helpful too. But when you're trying to like prepare for Christmas cards and stuff like that, sometimes it's nice when you can just do little individuals, but Christmas cards are something where you do like a big, huge, everybody's involved sort of picture. So the story that I was going to tell you, if you wanted to hear it, is with the lady that we had done these photos with. She also had done a set before, and I rejected them all because Darian's hand was in his mouth. But what I didn't finish telling you was that she had been at this train tracks just the previous week, same day, same time, with a engaged couple, and she, like, there was no trains. So she assured us that everything was going to be a-okay and fine. And my husband was kind of like, I don't know about this, but when you are doing something that you don't like and your wife wants family pictures, you kind of grin and bear it. And so he went along with it, and then surprise of all surprise. So this train, I just figured we would hear it. You don't hear it. You don't even feel that, like, there's no vibrations, there's no nothing. And it's a really picturesque spot because the train goes around a curve, a bend. So there's just like the train tracks, and then there's open sky. And so when we didn't see it until it had turned into the open sky, and then it was like they're honking on the horn, and we're like, oh my goodness. Now you see the ages of my young children there. So I had literally grabbed Darian and pulled him off. But on the other side of the tracks, my husband had taken Sienna, and we're yelling at Anara to get off the tracks, and she took one step off the tracks and froze. And thankfully our photographer like hoisted her in while Colin is throwing Sienna into a bush so he can turn around and go grab her, but the photographer had already grabbed her. So nobody died. However, it was not a memorable experience that we would ever want to reproduce. And so I'm just giving that heads up, that knowledge, that if your photographer suggests the train tracks, suggest a quiet little forested area. We'd also, and this is another tip that I would have, if there's anywhere where your autistic child really enjoys a place, somewhere, like if they love hiking and forest areas, or if they like, with my son, he likes the river and he loves throwing rocks into the river. And so that was what we did this past year, and it worked really, really well. We went in the fall where the fall colors were gorgeous. Not quite like my native Ontario where I grew up, but it was lovely and awesome. And she did get a lot of lens flare, which wasn't my favorite, but at the same time, we did manage to get some really pictures. And so now we don't have to do it for another 7 years. We might do it when our eldest is, I don't know, our eldest girl is maybe grade 12. She's a grade 9, so we got another 4 years. But I hope that this video has been helpful. I just wanted to share my experience, the things that I've learned. The best thing that you can do is communicate, and make sure that they feel comfortable to say. Your child is like doing something weird, like pulling on their shirt. Maybe don't say it like that, but be completely open to them saying, are you okay with that? And making sure that they understand that they can, because she was so concerned with not hurting my feelings or upsetting me, and then we wasted that photo shoot. Thankfully, she didn't charge me for it, but another photographer would have. And so that's one of my big things. And then off the cuff photos where you guys are just being normal and natural, 100% better than the staged. And yes, you need one good one where everyone's looking at the camera, but that can be spliced together. So I hope that this has been a helpful video. I also hope that I've given you permission, if you need it, that you don't need to have family pictures done every year. I know family that do that, and I am amazed by them, but it's just, to me, not worth it. I take regular pictures of my kids for their school pictures, and I do that myself, which means I can do all of the crazy antics. This past year, it was the year before, I had all three of them on a rock, and I would just fall down and then scramble, get up and take a picture, and then fall down and scramble up and take a picture. And I got all three of them looking at me and smiling, and it was a win. But it takes that kind of effort for me, and I'm never going to ask someone else to do that. So I feel like I've documented year after year after year my kids, and my husband doesn't like pictures, so I don't need us documented in that way. YouTube has documented me well enough. So I hope this has been a helpful video. We'll chat with you next time. Bye.